Hi, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken by a bear.
By a bear? Hey, Kiernan.
Hello, Ryan. How are you?
I'm good. I'm nestled up close to my Wi-Fi router.
Okay.
We're cuddling. It's very romantic.
Why aren't you plugged right straight into it?
I don't even think that you can do that kind of stuff anymore, can you?
I don't know. I just always assume that wires will resolve everything in the end.
Yeah. I think if you stay in a hotel from the 90s, you still have that Ethernet. It's like Ethernet available.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, wires are much more reliable than all this wireless stuff.
I agree. I couldn't agree more.
These blue teeth, they just keep going in, they go out, they try, connecting, disconnecting. It's a nightmare.
Bluetooth is not a real thing.
No, we can agree on that. Now, Ryan, where are you?
I'm in Bogota, Colombia.
Okay. All right, great. Back to Bogota.
Yeah, it's been an eventful couple days here.
You appear to be sort of teary. Is everything okay?
Everything is fine now, but yesterday I had a little bit of excitement here in Bogota.
Was it Halloween related?
It was Halloween, but not Halloween related.
Okay.
So I am I'm staying in sort of the Brooklyn of Bogota near a park called Parque de la Hippies.
Okay.
And you can imagine what this park is like. It's like, folks in their 20s, like drinking beers and smoking grass, reefer.
It sounds like your kind of party.
And yesterday was Halloween. And so it was especially sort of crowded and it was exciting. And
so Halloween is acknowledged there.
Yes. Halloween's kind of been globalized, I think. Yeah. So, I am literally waiting for my Uber to go see the new Scorsese film, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Mm-hmm. With Leo.
And I'm waiting. It's about 6:30, so it's just newly dark. And people are having a good time in the park. And, it's got a very Washington Square Park vibe. And then all of a sudden I see a march, a pro-Palestinian march that's coming down the road.
Ah, interesting.
And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And but I don't really pay much attention because it's not a huge march. It seems to be pretty orderly. And it kind of comes into the park and everything seems to be fine. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a bunch of riot police show up and start shooting tear gas into the park.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it was crazy. And so everybody starts to just run in all directions. And I'm like, I've never, been in part of tear gas before.
Hold on. All right. So are we talking like hundreds of people?
I'm talking like in the park, there are hundreds of people, but maybe only 50 or 60 related to the, to the march, to the pro-Palestinian march. Most people are just hanging out, like drinking beers, like doing nothing. Like it's not that exciting.
Okay.
And it seemed like a pretty normal night. And when the rally comes, people kind of turn their heads and look around, but it isn't like, like a super loud, crazy,
or violent or giant.
Not at all. Yeah. Not at all.
Okay.
And, in Latin America, there are marches and rallies like all the time. It's like, kind of par for the course.
The main pastime.
Yeah. And then just out of the blue, these riot police just start shooting canisters of tear gas all around. And it's like immediately.
What is it like when a canister of tear gas gets shot near you?
Well, when it shoots, it looks like they're shooting like a rocket or something.
I was wondering, were you worried about like an actual like ammunition?
Well, I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah.
So, I moved pretty quickly. I have to say I was impressed with how quickly I can.
I've seen you're not a brave man.
Well, and the thing about tear gas is you really can't like dodge it because it doesn't just go in one direction. It goes everywhere. So,
is it visible? Is it like a cloud?
It's visible like in the main area. And then you just feel like your face on fire in your mouth and your eyes.
And how much of a hit did you get?
They were not shooting, like I was on the other side of the park. I'm like half a block away. So I'm getting like just residual tear gas. So the folks who are like in the main part of it, they're getting the serious tear gas. So I can't say that I was seriously tear gassed, but you couldn't escape it. And I like put, everybody's like putting their shirts over their heads, and it's like we run back into the Airbnb, and they're like hesitant to let us in because they don't know first if we're like just randos trying to get into the apartment complex.
Yeah.
So finally they let us in, and they're all like, everyone's like standing at the window watching.
Were you getting
like
upset that they wouldn't let you in? Because they wouldn't know. They'd be like, "Are you crying because of the tear gas? Are you crying because we're not letting you into your apartment?" They
did. It felt like a longer period of time that I wasn't being let in than it probably was in reality. I mean, this all happened within the 6 minutes that the Uber is like coming. So like the Uber finally shows up, and the guy's like, like there's no people around, and he's like, oh, yeah. I'm like, yeah, there was
there was
incident.
Tear gas. He's like, yeah, okay, buddy. Somebody just broke up with you on the cell phone. You're crying your eyes out. Be a man. Get in the car.
So let me tell you that it definitely gave me that sort of at dinner. I didn't have a lot of taste. I could just
really?
taste.
Interesting.
Yeah, sort of like tasted like nothing. Yeah, but everything came back.
And if I know you, it's probably pretty $high dinner, pretty $high tasteless dinner.
Yeah, Chase said, friends of the pod, Chase made a joke. He's like, yeah, you're
of the pod, Peabody loser.
He's like, you're just waiting for an Uber to go to LATAM, one of LATAM's world best, and then all of a sudden, bam, tear gas everywhere. And that is, So my mom's going to listen to this and be horrified, but it wasn't.
I have a picture. It was, your son teased me with the story, but didn't give me the context. And it looked pretty rough. I got to say, Ryan, less and less do I feel that you are capable of taking care of yourself overseas. Oh, not, okay. You disagree. It's defined as overseas.
Yeah, well, it was exciting. So I can cross getting tear gassed by the Colombian police, hopefully off my list for good. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maybe not for good. You still got a while there.
Well, next time I see a rally that doesn't look scheduled, I am just gonna get out of that zone. Yeah.
How much longer are you there for?
I fly. I'm actually going to Phoenix to see a friend tomorrow. So this is my last.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you for scheduling the podcast recording for when you're on your worst Wi-Fi. Meaning we had 20 minutes of trying to make it work. Ryan's like tapping the side of it. But it seems to have hooked in. Well, Ryan, another reason you might be crying today is because we're dealing with a pretty scary subject today. This is an episode that I've been saying I want to do for a really long time. It's all about bears and bear safety.
Yeah, and bear spray,
And bear spray. It's going to be about bear spray and other tactics for protecting yourself against bears. And Ryan, since before we get into the meat of the episode, we do have some meaty new reviews that have come in.
Yes, thanks to our good friend Rick Steves, who was on the pod a couple episodes ago. We've been getting
wouldn't
some.
Say you became close friends with him. He's my good friend, but
he's a friend of the pod.
He just
Peabody winner, I'm sure.
Creepily showed up in the Zoom in the last few minutes to take a screenshot. The listeners know you weren't there. What do you think? Ryan sat quiet that whole time? He wasn't there.
I heard most of it live. In between calls. Well, look, thanks to our friend of the pod, Rick Steves, we've gotten some great new reviews over on Apple Podcast. Greg Park says that we are fun and informative, and says that we have a lot of episodes on Mexico City and Boston, which I think is completely accurate. You will not be disappointed.
Yeah, he's a real listener. You can tell that. He didn't mention Peru. We got a lot on Peru.
I think we have more in Peru than probably any specific place.
I don't know. I feel like we've done this block of Mexico City, and the next episode, the next block.
It's like Ryan's Condesa. Yeah, no, it gets pretty specific. But he does mention, I think that is something that's quite funny. He says it's disconcerting that we take off with the cabin crew, and then that we have a last stop, which is a train. So our audience is taking off and then getting off a train. What do you have to say about that sort of leap of logic?
I think that it's playful and it's whimsical, and we're combining it. We're embracing air travel. We're embracing travel by rail. And, I feel like we don't have enough. I wish that we had a nautical themed segment. We just haven't come up with it yet.
Yeah, that would be cool, actually. So we will think of something to disembark from a ship, or to take off from a ship. Sure. Embark. And then a shout out to Melanie Marcel, who says it's a fun podcast for travel lovers with a lot of gold nuggets. And she calls out the Wikipedia post office murals, which I loved, Kiernan.
Of course. Yeah, it's a good one.
And then last but not least, Mr. Cargiff or Mrs. Cargiff. I'm not quite sure.
Or Miss, we don't know status.
Yes, we don't know. But they
we also don't know pronouns. There's a lot of you really shouldn't have tried to. It could be doctor, could be Esquire.
We know it's a 5-star review, so that's why it's getting a shout out. And they suggested that we have a interactive map where you can click and go to see where all the pods have been.
Well, we should get our web design team on that. And so let's see, we're already out, tens of thousands of dollars on what it takes for this free podcast to come out to you. So thank you so much to the listeners who are suggesting more ways for us to give you free content and throw our own money and lives away on it.
Yeah, so I think we'll get right on that interactive map.
Unless she happens to be a web developer and she's raising her hand, in which case, get back in touch.
Well, she does say it would be great for travel prep. So do reach out if you want to help us build.
Are we not doing enough? Do we not freaking bleed for the Out of Office podcast listeners? My Lord.
I think we do quite literally. I'm getting
the Patreon going, because if we're getting suggestions like this, I know, I have faith that what she's really saying is, I want to shell out $50 a month to have access to an interactive map only for our highest tier Patreon supporters.
Yes, we will look into this. There must be a simple solution.
You know that there's not. There's no simple solution to anything. If there's one thing I know from working with so many clients in marketing, there's nothing easy that can be done.
No, but I think Well, anyway, thank you so much, folks, for the reviews. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. And Kiernan, I think it's time to take off.
Tell the cabin crew, there's a bear on the plane.
Ah!
Flight attendants, prepare for takeoff, please.
They never made a bears on the plane, did they?
No, that'd be a good follow-up. But Ryan, as far as I know, your primary understanding of bears comes from Cocaine Bear. Is that true?
Cocaine Bear and my time on Fire Island. Yes.
Sure. All right. I'm glad we got that joke out of the way. We knew that was coming. I didn't know it was going to be that early, but I'm glad.
I still have a Provincetown joke left, so I'm keeping that one.
And Ryan, have you ever seen a bear out in the wild?
I was thinking about this. I have only ever seen bears in captivity. I've never seen a bear in the wild. Yeah.
So you've never had that scary rush of adrenaline of almost crossing paths with a bear.
No, I've had that rush of adrenaline, but not from a bear.
Okay. Let's go from tear gas, primarily.
Exactly.
Shot at your face. Well, I'm well read on bear safety. I've never myself been attacked by a bear, I'm happy to say, though I am on record having told Catherine that when I think it's time to die, I do think that being eaten by a bear might be the best way to go.
But it's super unlikely, right? Like, there are not that many bear attacks.
Yeah, that's true. There are anywhere between 35 and 45 bear attacks everywhere in the world per year. So this is like a pretty this is a pretty rare event, and that's why it does get massive coverage when it actually happens, because this isn't like a daily thing. And I think some people could think that based on like what you see it in the news. But of those 35 to 45 per year all around the world, about 10 of them are in North America. And the reason for that, Ryan, is because here in North America, we are blessed with 3 different types of bears. Now, I'm wondering, as somebody who's not very familiar with bears, can you name the 3 types of bears we have here in North America?
I think I can. A brown bear.
Got the brown bear. That's right.
A grizzly.
A grizzly is a type of brown bear, so we're still on brown bear. So we've got the 1.
And a black bear.
We got a black bear. Yep. And keep thinking, there's 1 more.
Not a panda. That would be awesome.
Think of how big North America is. It goes way up north.
Oh, it's that white bear from from Canada. What is that called?
Are you genuinely not remembering, or is this a bit?
No, I can't remember the name of it. Give me a second.
A polar bear.
A polar bear. Like polar, yes, a polar bear.
Very good. And also good confirmation for the listeners that Ryan does not read the outline that I sent before the show. But I'm good. It means that it's genuine. Okay. So I think very specifically you came up with a good, you were very smart to call out the grizzly bear as a subset of the brown bear. And I want to say that the brown bear, black bear designation, very important that when you see a bear, you may not be able to immediately tell which type of bear you're dealing with here, because in fact, the color of the coats of the bear changes a lot with the season. And so a black bear might actually have brown fur. During certain times of year, certain types of bear might actually have almost blonde hair, even though they're called black bears. And similarly, brown bears can have super dark coats that would make you think it's a black bear. So how are you supposed to tell them apart?
These just seem like really bad names then.
Yeah, they're not the best names. However, you can feel good. I bet that you probably can identify a polar bear. For one, are you a place that's really freaking cold? And two, does it make you want Coca-Cola?
I was going to say, is it drinking?
At a polar bear.
The drinking a Coca-Cola is how you would tell, versus a cocaine bear, which is a totally other kind of Coke bear.
Sure. And the good thing is there's a few things that you can look for to decide what type you're dealing with. As we said, the geography, as far as the polar bear is concerned, is an important thing for you to know. And the geography is also a good guide for what other types of bear you might be dealing with. Most of the brown bears in North America live in Alaska and in Canada. So if you're in New England and you spot a bear, you're probably dealing with a black bear, not with a brown bear. And these designations are very important because the way that you're going to deal with your safety is going to depend on which type of bear you're dealing with here.
Which bear is more dangerous?
Well, the brown bears as a class are dangerous, and they're the ones that the most average listeners are most likely, if you visit places like this, to run into. Polar bears are actually known as the most aggressive of all the bears, which that was actually news to me. I learned
all that caffeine,
in the research
right?
here. Yeah, all that Coke goes straight to the. Well, they're also probably pretty pissed about climate change, so I feel like it's a bad general trend here. But no, joking aside, if you're a place where there are polar bears are struggling to hang on to survival, and many of them are hungry and becoming more desperate. So you actually have polar bear attacks slightly rising, so they can be dangerous. But again, if you're going to those places, you probably can identify the polar bear. A black bear is smaller. And they have kind of taller ears and a shorter little face. But the main thing that's going to differentiate it from a brown bear that you're going to want to look for is brown bears have a giant hump between their shoulders. And we'll put up on the Instagram at OOO podcast, like at OO podcast, a couple pictures of bears for you to identify. And you're going to see there's like a giant hump of muscle, just perfectly designed to rip open humans right between the shoulder blades. And that's when you know you're dealing with a real scary brown bear, potentially a grizzly bear. And by the way, it's important. The reason that they're even called grizzly bears is because grizzly bears often have kind of a grizzled look with this like a lighter color on the tips of their hair. And so it looks just a little more frazzled, a little more grizzled. Actually a frazzly bear is a great, that's a fun alternative name for it. But grizzly sounds more threatening.
Yeah, you want to like play with a frazzly bear.
Yeah, well, you don't want to play with any bear. I think that if you're going to take anything away from today's episode, the main thing I want you to take away is that you should stay far away from bears, and they're enjoyable to see when from a distance, and if you're in a vehicle. Those are pretty much the two circumstances that you should be comfortable seeing a bear, but you definitely don't want to approach. And we're going to talk about different tactics that we have should you find yourself in a perilous situation.
Well, I'm excited to hear these tactics because I hope to see a bear in the near future. So.
Ryan, I can kind of hear in your voice, if I were to bring you to bear country, you're going to be like, smearing peanut butter around in the hopes of attracting them to where we are. That is not what we want people to be doing. We want to see them from a safe distance. And if you don't see them, you can take comfort in the fact that they knew you were there. You didn't disturb them. And, you weren't mauled to death. That's a good way to think about it if you don't see a bear.
Okay.
So the main thing that I want you to know is that most bears, they're not like interested in eating humans. While cocaine bear and similar pop culture things can make it seem more common, the truth is they mostly want to be left alone. And so the number one deterrent for avoiding a dangerous situation with a bear is to make a lot of noise. And that means hiking in a group, or when you're hiking through places that may have bears, wilder countries, you want to have loud conversations. You might want to sing along the way, and basically just let them know that you're coming, because that's if you're getting too close, that's what's going to make them run away.
That seems so counterintuitive. So they're not going to be attracted to your voice. See, I would think that the opposite.
No, see, this is where, and by the way, I should say, I didn't need to speak about my own experience with bear country. Obviously, I've been to many national parks, and I would say that the one where the bears felt the most present, and certainly where I saw bears, was in Denali National Park in Alaska. And the number one thing that those rangers are doing as they lead you out into the country. And keep in mind, I've mentioned on the podcast before, Denali is interesting for the fact that it doesn't have defined trails that you just head out into a direction. And so in our case, we were taking all our hikes with a guide, and they're calling ahead where they're taking you. And most I have found like to yell, "Hey bear, hey bear." And that's a way of making sure that the bear knows, get away. And it's an effective way to say, get out of the way. And whereas you thought it's more like a dinner bell, like, "Hey bear, here I come. Ain't I delicious?"
Yeah. So the bear doesn't want to have contact and will move away if it hears you calling out "hello bear" or some variation. It doesn't really know the word bear.
And Ryan, what you can consider basically like a safer distance from a bear, though bears can run very fast, and if you catch them unexpected, or if they're foraging, they're looking for food, it can be dangerous even at this distance, is you want to be about half the length of a football field away, though I would say that even that is a little too close for comfort. And different national parks have different guidance. If you're going to a place has bear, look it up. Or ask a ranger. I'll tell you, for example, Yellowstone, it's 100 yards away. So a full football field. Shenandoah says 200 feet away. So these are just different standards, also your own comfort. But my recommendation is quite far away.
You and I would have no idea what the length of a football field is. Is it 4 miles?
What are you talking? I was a drum major in the marching band. How dare you? I was one of the sharpest marchers. I could measure a foot and a yard with my eyes closed, using my perfect roll step, which is anyone in marching band is nodding their head vigorously right now.
And I actually think that's probably about the core to our audience is having done
we have
band.
many football players. Now, a funny thing that you'll sometimes hear about making noise in the woods is really like amateur hikers, or it's kind of like a stereotype around city folk, is that they bring these things called bear bells. And it's one of these things that are like sold in outdoor goods stores that are kind of a joke among people who are like real backpackers and outdoors people. And it's because they're these bells that you put on your backpack. and they kind of jingle jangle as you walk along. And one, they're just like super annoying and make you sound stupid. It sounds like Santa Claus is hiking. But also they're not very effective. They're quite faint. Like they don't travel as far as like a good human voice calling out in the wilderness. And so one thing that I have found being with people who are familiar with bear country, but also researching for the episode, is there's a lot of like jokey gallows humor about bears and bear attacks. And one of the sort of great jokes is, what's the difference between brown bear poop and black bear poop? And it's that the brown bear poop has bells in it. And that's because they're the aggressive ones who are likely to have eaten a hiker with some bells.
That's pretty grim.
It's pretty grim. Well, you know, if it's you gotta laugh.
So to identify the bear, I'm looking for I'm getting close enough that I can see the muscle on the back, and then I'm going through its stool. So far, so good. Yeah.
I definitely didn't say go through the stool. I'm not recommending that at all. But also, you have to be very careful in entering a place with bears and having food on you or in your backpack.
Did you see that viral video from Mexico a couple weeks ago? That kid's birthday party, the bear just jumped up and starts eating everything on the table.
No. What's this?
It went viral just a couple weeks ago, and at a national park in Mexico, and the bear jumps up and starts eating everything on the table, and the family just sits there totally still while the bear finishes the meal and walks away.
Oh my God!
So wow. You got to be careful out there.
That's pretty scary.
Yeah, ruin the kid's birthday. Not a good bear.
And again, to preach avoidance and not having the bear come near you. If you're going out and you're camping, they recommend that you have one of these bear containers or bear bags that you can string up into a tree away from your website. My God, away from your campsite. Oh man, we're so out of touch with nature, right? In our day to day. So that's why I go to the national park. So you got to string your food up separately away from your campsite. And there's even further recommendations if you're sleeping out in a tent in the woods. Folks say, you shouldn't have anything perfumed, any sort of sprays or anything that's like artificially smelly in your tent with you, like a sunscreen or an insect repellent. Those should be kept away because a curious bear might just be searching for an unfamiliar scent. And in fact, and this is where it gets a little scarier, they recommend the ideal situation when you're camping in bear country is to sleep a little bit away from the tent wall so that if a curious bear following its very good sense of smell is curious what's in this tent, if they start kind of poking around, they don't start to poke and note that you're in there. And then a final recommendation, and this is really when you get into the horrifying part, is experts say that you shouldn't fully zip up your sleeping bag when you're in bear country, because there have been instances where a bear manages to get a camper out of their tent, dragging them within their sleeping bag, kind of like a burrito, and the person just can't get out of the bag. So they come out in full from their tent, zipped in too tight.
Oh, God, that's quite the ride.
It's really something. And, there's actually like a whole class of gear that you can buy to set up like a security perimeter so you're alerted if a bear comes into your site. And there's particularly one that is recommended called Critter Gitter. We'll put a link to it in the show notes, but that's one where you kind of get an early warning if a bear is nearby, so you take even further precautions.
So I got to stop hiking with just prime rib taped around my leg.
Yeah,
I'm asking for it.
I mean, as long you just can't keep it taped to your leg while you're asleep.
Well, that's the only way I can get any rest.
As some people, they need the cold side of the pillow. Ryan, it's prime rib strapped to his upper thigh. All right, Ryan. A couple other precautions that you want to take, and again, I really do caution you, don't take this lightly. Don't think it's silly if you're heading into bear country. We bring so much with us into the country, and generally, especially those who we don't live full time out in the wilderness, that things that you might not expect could to be dangerous, like a lotion or something like that, do become dangerous in this sort of context. So certainly leaving those things at home is going to be the best way to avoid that sort of confrontation. There are certain times of day where you're more likely to have a run-in with a bear. So by and large, it's hiking that tends to be the activity folks are doing the most when they get into a dangerous situation with a bear.
So more than sleeping, hiking is really where it's at.
That's correct.
Gotcha.
And there are certain the National Park Service tends to say that avoiding hiking in bear country at dawn and dusk into night is really the time where you're more likely to be in a dangerous situation. And that's because that's when bears are foraging for food. And a hungry bear is definitely when you're in a more dangerous situation, as opposed to just a bear that is surprised or that you came upon because, you weren't making a ton of noise. So it's really a hungry bear that you're trying to avoid the most.
So the skinny bears with the big muscles on the back, those are the real danger. I like that you're starting to form a picture and talk out a picture as we go. Although each in my head, the bears are all adorable. So it's not those silly little ears. I mean, those things are not for real.
I mean, I agree with that. They are very cute and they are thrilling to see. So the last precautionary thing that I'm going to recommend is that you consider bringing bear spray with you. Now, I have shared on the podcast before, but we have a lot of new listeners. When I was going into Alaska a few years ago, I attended a National Park Service had a class about bear safety, and I went to it, and there was a woman there who mistook the what you use bear spray for. She thought it was like bug spray, where you spray preemptively on your skin, and that's going to keep the bears away. But it's not like bug spray. It's the opposite of bug spray. You don't use your can of bear spray until you are in a close encounter with a brown or black or polar bear. This is really like when you're already in a deep, dangerous situation, and you are this is kind of your last armament.
It's like mace.
It is. It's like mace.
It should be called bear mace instead of bear spray. It's just bad
bear
branding.
Mace. Yeah, I like that. It should be called bear mace. So it basically has this pepper, which is an irritant to bears, and you want to spray it at an approaching bear directly in its face, because you're trying to get it in its eyes and ears and mouth. And that, Ryan, this sounds very familiar to what you recently experienced, actually.
It does. Yeah, it does make you scatter.
And when you're preparing for a trip, many parks will list or wilderness areas will list a bear spray as an essential thing to bring with you. I just forewarning for those who don't know, it's pretty expensive. It can cost you like $40, $50 a pop. And, in all likelihood, you're not going to actually use it. So some hotels will actually guests that are leaving and returning to non-bear country will leave their pepper spray for the next set of guests. So that's something you might consider doing, is just giving a ring to wherever you're staying, or any other area that you're going through, guest services or park services, to ask whether they have bear spray available there. And if they don't, no, you cannot bring bear spray onto a plane. Because it is very dangerous. So don't think.
It makes sense. Yeah.
Of course it makes sense. But, it's one of those things that you might not think through, because it's not like a blade, but, it looks like
I don't think I've ever seen one of those signs at the airport that says no bear spray, when it's
I'm here to tell you, you can't bring bear spray. And, it's actually abrasive enough that you can't. There are certain national parks where bears aren't a problem, where it's actually, you're not allowed to bring it into that national park. So it's kind of right on that line of is this a weapon or is this not a weapon? Again, because I'm somewhat a student of bear attacks, I have heard these stories about people who are out hunting where a bear was head on attacking them, and they shot the thing within feet of killing it, like straight through the head, because they had a gun and this thing was about to kill it, and they were nearly mauled. All right, Ryan. So now we get to the meat of the episode. The thing I know that you're most interested in, which is
I thought humans were the meat of the episode.
What to actually do if you find yourself in a dangerous situation, because there are sort of a few things. There's like misconceptions. There's kind of folklore, and then there's what you should actually be doing. So I'm going to try to make sure that folks come away with a clear vision of what they should be doing. And it starts with one of these classic old bear sayings, and that is, if it's black, fight back, and if it's brown, lie down. All right. Can you say that back to me, Ryan?
If it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down.
Yeah. So it's not if it's brown, you're in fight back town. And if it's black, lie down like you're a sack. That's not what it is. Okay. So
no, that would be a much worse rhyme.
What I think it's a pretty good rhyme.
Yeah.
But if it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down. Now, you have pointed out the fact that while this might be great wisdom, you're going to have to, in a moment of panic, be diagnosing which kind of bear that you're dealing with, because you can't trust the fur. And that's a problem. But hopefully, because of where you are, you may have an inkling, and maybe there's been, some interaction between you and the bear, where the bear has been kind of in a threatening position. You might be able to see that hump of muscle and diagnose it as a brown bear, which is a much more serious situation than a black bear. So the main thing here is that a black bear is less likely to fight back. And so you want to make yourself look big, and you want to intimidate it. Raise your arms up above your head, hold an object to make you look taller, and again, make a lot of noise and shout. And that's going to scare a black bear away. So that's if it's black, fight back. But if it's brown bear, and this is like kind of the unfortunate thing, because you want to do basically the exact opposite. You want to lie still and down to make it lose interest in you. So you and this is very particular, and it gets a little gruesome if you think about this too much. But the recommendation is that you lie down on your stomach to cover up your soft parts that they might find particularly delicious, and clasp your hands above your neck, because you don't want them to be using their claws to swipe at your spine there. And
this is the same bear that minutes ago was getting scared away by me going, "Hey, bear, hey!" And now I'm cowering on the ground. Well, I'm covering up my soft bits.
We're sort of.
I have a lot of soft bits these days.
It's again, I mean, you've made the jump. Most bears are going to avoid you if you've been making your noise and they see you coming. What I'm going to is the extreme position where if you find yourself in a confrontation, if you're facing a black bear, you want to fight back. If you're facing a brown bear, you want them to lose interest and cover up all those soft parts, Ryan.
Okay.
Now, a couple things first of all, I mean, you're going to have great self-control in order to do this lie down method. And also, you want to give the bear time to move away. So if it's sniffing around, you maintain that position, and then you want it to lose interest and walk away, and you want to sit there for another 10 minutes in that position to make sure that it's out of the area. Because what you don't want to trigger is the bear's response that you are prey. Okay. Now, what would prey do? What do prey animals do when a predator's coming after them? They run. Okay. You don't want to run. You notice with neither of these did I say that running is the right outcome.
And can you outrun one of these bears, or they can really move?
You can't. You can't outrun a bear. Bears can run up to 30 miles an hour.
Oh, that's pretty fast.
And even the fastest human is not achieving 30 miles an hour. So you're definitely not. Now, where it's a judgment call is if you are near a cabin or a safe facility, or a car where you're going to be able to open that door and slam it shut really fast. so that there's a barrier, physical barrier between you that the bear can't get through. That's a place where, if you can get there in 3 seconds, you're going to feel more secure and you're going to be safer. But in most instances, making a quick movement that says to the bear, I am trying to escape you and I am scared of you, that's going to trigger this predatory response where they immediately, you're confirming that you are food.
All right. Well, that is, I'm going to have to remember that in a very stressful moment.
Now, another piece that you'll note, and again, you have to have a lot of presence of mind, but people who deal with bears and spend a lot of time in bear country are going to know, is that bears, even if they are interested in you and they are approaching you, they may be making like a fake attack, like a bluff attack, and standing your ground in that case before you've gotten into this like aggressive confrontation may actually dissuade them and make them leave. So it's, again, with a black bear, you're going to want to like make yourself bigger and stand your ground. And then this like getting on the ground with a grizzly bear, that's when you're really in a very serious situation. Now, here's another one that I think might be a surprise to people, which is about climbing trees. Do you think you should climb a tree if you find yourself in a dangerous encounter with a bear?
Well, having seen Cocaine Bear, I know that you should not.
Now, I imagine Cocaine Bear was probably a grizzly bear.
It was a grizzly bear, yeah.
So with a black bear, you definitely don't want to climb a tree, okay? Because they're great climbers and you're not going to outclimb them. They're
faster than you and they're great climbers.
Yeah, and they're much smaller than grizzly bears, brown bears. So they're actually quite agile on trees. Now, a grizzly is going to be less agile, but still much more muscular than you are. And so one of these great old bear sayings is that, how do you know if you're dealing with a black bear or a grizzly bear? Well, one is that the black bear will climb up the tree and eat you, and the grizzly bear will just tear the tree down and eat you. Which is not quite like. So climbing a tree is not a feasible way to be avoiding the confrontation. So just don't do it. And then there is.
I like it, by the way, that you think that's an option for most people.
Now, you may have noticed that we haven't talked about polar bears. And that's going back to the fact that polar bears are extremely dangerous and they're very curious. And so dissuading them from interest in you is going to be difficult. And you recall that saying that I said, if it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down.
Yes.
There's a third part of it, which is if it's white, say good night.
Whoa.
So pretty grim there. So if you get into a confrontation with a polar bear, it's much more serious, and you really should have the bear spray at the ready. And you're likely you're already in extreme circumstances. I'm guessing that you are with an experienced professional who has helped you avoid this situation, or who may be armed and ready to deal with this situation.
So the polar bears are just really, those are some dangerous bears.
Yes. And now, Ryan, I do want to just sum up one last very upsetting story that I read preparing for the episode. Bear experts have said that what they find very frustrating with the yous and me's of the world and the people who aren't like around bears every day out in the wilderness is that when they hear episodes like this, they kind of hang on to the advice for a day or two, and then it kind of starts to fade. And the one thing they all seem to remember is play dead, which is like the basically getting on the ground and trying to make them lose interest. That you're not prey, just, play dead and get down on the ground. And one expert was talking about how there was a woman who was actively having her leg chewed on by a bear. She continued to play dead because she felt that was like the guidance that she remembered. And the experts say, if a bear is actively feeding on you, that's the time where you need to do anything you possibly can, any weapon, anything you can hit it with. to get out of that situation. You do not want to continue to play dead if it's actively eating you.
Yeah, the plain dead will become less plain, within a matter of minutes, I would imagine.
That's right. So you just want to grab any rock or log or piece of gear or whatever, and you would want to aim it at their head, the face, and eyes and ears to get it to disengage from you. And then try one of the other tactics that we talked about. So it's pretty serious. Again, I always make sure to have a bear spray in my hands.
Once you're at that point,
I have some alternative.
Once you're actually getting
you're
eaten,
not looking good.
Yeah, the odds are against you at that moment.
So there it is, Ryan. I feel like we've done a great public safety service, and that's how you protect yourself from bears. So bookmark this episode, keep it on your phone, tell your friends who are going to wild places about it, and let's save a whole bunch of people, and let's save a whole bunch of bears, because after a bear has had any sort of bloody confrontation with a human, guess what? They're going to go after and they're going to kill that bear, because they're going to say it can't be trusted around humans anymore. So it's good for bears. It's good for humans. Bear safety is the best.
Yeah, bear with us as we go to the last
Ryan, how freaking dare you? I did bring in the puns on the pod. All right, Ryan. Well, with that, I think it's time for the last stop.
The last stop.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last stop on this train. Everyone, please leave the train.
All right, Ryan, we're here in the last stop. This is the final segment of the show, the last segment of the show. That's why it's called the last stop. It's my favorite segment. It's your favorite segment. It's popularly known as the People's Segment. Now, what's the reason for that? I'll tell you. The reason for that is because it's a moment where we come together as a community to share. Sure, we're always sharing information, but this is where it gets a little more personal, because you and I, Ryan, each bring one thing. The thing can be anything. It can be a piece of advice. It could be an anecdote. It could be an experience. It could be something exciting. It could be something scary. It could be a piece of gear or a souvenir, but it must check one criterion, and the criterion it must meet. It's got to check a box. The box is tied to a criterion, and the criterion that it has to meet is that it must inspire the spirit of wanderlust within us, even during the workaday week. So, Ryan, I'm going to ask you, as I ask you every episode, do you have a last stop this week?
I do have a last stop, and this last stop comes from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, where I am from. Folks might remember that episode.
Very popular episode.
Very popular episode. And it's about this house called the Futuro, which was basically sold in a kit in the 1960s. And it looks a lot like a UFO. And folks, had these kind of throughout the country. And now there's only about 100 left still standing in the world of these Futuros. I'm going to link in the show notes. You can see what these look like. And a gentleman in Houston, Delaware, which is a town so small I've never heard of it, in Delaware, has one of these houses that he purchased in 1977. And he's working on getting it into the National Historic Places Registry. And it's just a really cool house. And I think that if I was doing a little road trip, I might make a detour, because I love these UFO houses. I've seen a couple of them in my life. I don't think I've seen this exact model, which has got these great windows, sort of has like RV kind of windows going on. Uh-huh. But I just think it's a super cool house. And I love little architecture stories like this.
I like that Futuro. First of all, I think it's a great brand. I really like it.
You should bring it back.
Well, it's always timely, right? Because there's always a future. And I think that it sounds a lot like, that movie Hook? Do you remember that movie?
Of course.
It sounds like Rufio. Remember they chant Rufio, Rufio, and it feels like you could really chant Futuro, Futuro.
Yeah, and it reminded me of Futurama as well, which I'm sure you were a fan of.
I'm a great fan of Futurama, of course.
Yeah, a UFO house. It's people love tiny homes now. So, why not a little UFO house? You have to go up those little staircases. I love it. It's very cool. Did you bring a last stop this week, Kiernan?
I, of course, brought a last stop this week, Ryan, and it's both tied to current events and an ongoing discussion on the podcast, which is that frequent listeners will know this, new listeners will learn this, that you and I were planning a trip together, and it's unfortunately been delayed because of a couple circumstances I had in the past couple months, but we're still going to do it, and I'm still eyeing Louisville and Mammoth Cave as our destination, Ryan. In fact, more and more, I think that that's the right destination. And so it occurred to me this week with the new Speaker of the House, second in line to the presidency, Mike Johnson, there was a lot of stories about his support for the museum.
The Creation Museum.
The Creation Museum. Now, this is where it gets interesting, Ryan, because this is a museum in Kentucky that that claims to show Bible history as sort of in the making, and Bible and history already together is a pretty interesting thing. But it's a creationist museum that basically says that it's all that all of evolution has been executed through divine wisdom and God, and that we don't understand a lot of it. So it's kind of a hyper super Christian sort of belief. By the way, I will say, Ryan, just so you know, and I know some listeners probably confused about that, you and I both raised Catholic. The Catholics believe in evolution. Thank you very much.
Yes, they believe but it's evolution that was driven by God.
Well, arguably everything's driven by God,
true.
Ryan. So,
but the Creation Museum has you're underselling it, because I've seen a million YouTubes about this. They have a Noah's Ark.
Well, so this is what's interesting and what I've discovered, and this is really the heart of the last stop, which is when I heard that Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, was supportive of this Creation Museum and an uber Christian, I got to thinking, gosh, this would be a great place to plug into our Louisville Mammoth trip. And I was so hoping that it was going to be between Louisville and Mammoth, where we were already going to have to drive. Now, the bad news is that it's completely in the wrong direction. It would add many hours to the trip to go out there and back to Louisville and then back down and up. So I think it's actually in the cards that we're going to end up there? I don't. However, there are two sites that are actually much closer to Cincinnati than they are to Louisville. And they are the Creation Museum and then what is called, and this is what you're thinking of, the Ark Encounter. And the Ark Encounter is the full giant built out, I'm putting museum in quotes, museum that is a recreation of the Ark and actually has the dinosaurs on the Ark, which to me is just the most fun detail of it all.
I didn't know that the Creation Museum was different than the Ark experience.
I feel that this is getting confused in the coverage, and that's what I'm here to tell you, Ryan.
Wow!
If we decide to go north from Louisville in the direction of Cincinnati, we could both visit the Creation Museum, which is how I've been hearing it referred to in the context of Mike Johnson, but then we got to swing by. I have to say, I'm more drawn to the Ark Encounter myself.
Yeah, the Ark Encounter sounds awesome.
So we're still, while I am zoning in on Louisville, we are still taking suggestions. So if anybody out there has a suggestion of where Ryan and I should go, we're looking for places that are, a 3 to 4 hour flight from New York and Boston. And I like the idea of getting somewhere out in the wilderness. We've had some great suggestions come in. We're bringing them onto the show. We're talking about them, debating them. So send us an email, outofofficepod@gmail.com.
Or shoot us an Instagram at OOO Podcast.
Just slip into those DMs.
Exactly. Well, Kiernan, until next week, I'm Ryan Davis.
And I'm Kiernan Schmidt.
And this is Out of Office, a travel podcast.
This seat taken. Quick, Ryan, a grizzly bear's right in front of you. What do you do?
Fall down.
And cover your...
all my soft spots.
It's going to be a struggle.
How did Moses get all those bears on the ark?
He must have covered up all those soft bits.